I think nutrition, and I'll just give you an example. Like, I don't think our kids eat enough. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about the only macronutrient that matters is calories for some of these kids. And it's crazy to me that they don't eat enough, especially with like the dining services that we have. Like,
Welcome to Iron Summit, the podcast where we dive deep into the art and science of becoming your best self, blending expert insights on strength training, smart recovery, optimal nutrition, and mindset mastery to help you elevate your game.
I'm super pumped to talk to you, man. So you're the director of strength and conditioning at Benedict Military School.
There it is.
Used to work at GCU, used
Yep.
to work at Northwestern where I met you. Was my strength coach for quite a few years in college. You
Yep.
also worked at the Citadel.
Yep.
You got a master's in health, exercise, and sports science from Citadel. Strength and conditioning coach certification, SCCC, certified strength and conditioning specialist, CSCS, and then USA weightlifting level 1 performance coach certification, USAW. So just wealth of knowledge. And just fun fact, I think you're probably the first strength coach that I've ever been around that like our wrestling coach had to be like, hey, you're doing your job too well. Stop putting so much muscle on these guys. They can't make weight.
Well, dude, I had guys like Seabass. He was one where like no matter what, dude, he would just blow up. And it was like no matter what the adjustments were that we made, it was just, like, all right, the only adjustment is like, all right, go up there on the treadmill, like when we got the cardio up. And it sucked. Dude, it sucked. But at the same time, like, that was a good lesson on my end. It's just like, well, like it doesn't matter how much stronger they get and stuff, if they're not making their weight, like we're screwed, So that was one. Yaya
But I
was
think
another one.
it's great
Yaya
though, because
could
it's
blow
like,
up.
hey, you're too good at your job. Don't do your job as well.
Yeah, yeah. But one of the good things too. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to ask, what do you think that is? That is it just genetics? Like, why do some people add
100%.
tissue so easily?
Dude, 100% genetics. Well, also too, what I thought that you guys did a really good job of was like, or at least y'all always gave me the impression of was your diets and stuff too. Like y'all handle the things that you could handle, like the things that were in your control. What are you eating? What are you how much are you sleeping? What are you doing? And that was one of the things too at Northwestern, to where when those variables are managed and taken care of, it's like the programming, like you can do anything really. Like I don't mean that to try to belittle my job, but it could be literally anything that we're doing as long as we're increasing the KPIs that we're focusing on, like moving better, getting stronger, getting more explosive. Those things all take care of themselves if you're handling all the other stuff. Like in my current role now, that's like what I tell our guys. It's like guys get stronger, guys get more explosive, guys are moving better. And like my guys right now in the high school setting, 14 to 18-year-olds, sometimes it's in spite of them doing everything wrong. It's kind of like mind-boggling. Like they're not sleeping. They are, they're messaging me at 3 a.m. like, oh, Coach Wright, like, oh, I'm gonna eat this for breakfast. And it's like, dude, it's 3 a.m. Like, when are you gonna eat? Are you eating breakfast now? Like, are you gonna go to bed? So I think it's mainly genetics. Going back to genetics for what we had at Northwestern for sure. Like we had some freaks, and Storny recruited them, so.
Do you think part of that too is like some people don't lift weights a lot in high school? Some people do. And so if you hadn't touched a weight and then you get to a college weight room, you're kind of hitting this like second puberty where you're starting to just put on muscle.
That's a
And
great
then,
point.
yeah.
That's a great point. I think we did have some of those guys, which looking back on it now is kind of mind-boggling to me because it's such a high level of wrestling. And here we are bringing in somebody who's such a high level of skill at their sport, but then, have never touched a weight, have never been in a weight room, have never had a strength coach, and that boggled my mind. But now being a high school strength coach, it's like, well, it's actually pretty common, like there's one other guy in Savannah, in the South, like in the area where he came from the collegiate setting, Coach Wedding at Savannah Christian, and me and him, it's kind of us. I don't want to say it's us against the world, but we share some of the same kind of struggles of just like, like our guys will go to outside trainers and like some are good, some are not so great. And it'd be easy to kind of just pick apart like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or you should be doing this, or you should be doing this. But like the reality of my scenario is because we have 8 periods in a day, like we're at most getting, like we have 45-minute classes. So, you factor in some training time and the bell and stuff. Like reality, we're getting probably like 38 minutes of training every day. And so, um, it would be really naive of me to think like all you need is the 38 minutes with me. So like it's more so working with the outside trainers and educating the kids on being like, hey, you can talk to your guy this evening, like after your practice, and be like, hey, we did this today in PE, like, can we work around that? Because ultimately they're paying them to, fill the buckets that they're not already getting. So it wouldn't make any sense. So it's like, hey, if today's our lower body push day, or our big kind of like big strength emphasis day, it doesn't make any sense to go like, all right, well, we're going to go do bench press, 4 sets of 12 tonight. It's like, what is that? Like, what kind of adaptation is that going to help you out? Um, so that's kind of the thing that we're battling now. So you can kind of see how it could happen having guys that never touched a weight, then just kind of blow up, with that second puberty wave. I guess you could call it that. Yeah.
I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I definitely feel like
I mean, I feel like some of the kids we have now, it's like, dang, dude, how many puberties have you hit? Like every year, you're like getting a new one.
I'm still waiting for my second puberty wave.
Yeah, right.
Max, you're full grown. they're
Nah,
they're
man,
eating
it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
the what's it the cows, dude. The cows with the antibodies and the steroid shot up. What was the cow we were talking
Dude.
about?
Oh, the
Myostatin inhibitor.
myostatin, the
Yeah.
Belgian bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what these
No,
kids
man,
are
but
eating
I
these
remember,
days.
dude, it's funny you say that. Like I used to, like I wasn't the biggest kid in high school, but I did respond well to training, which I guess probably, like if you think in a weird way, it kind of set me up for being a strength coach, because I would train for my sport and love it because I would see results. And that just factored into me like loving training as much as my sport too, like, because in the South you did, football in the fall, soccer in the spring. So for me, it was kind of like a jack of all trades scenario. Like I never had a true off season to like get huge for football. And then because in the springtime I'm running my butt off at soccer practice. Um, and then in the fall time is when a lot of club ball would happen. So then I never got, you know, the I guess the skill or technique work for soccer stuff after in the fall time. Um, but I just love training, man. I love, like, we would get guys like my best friend in high school too. His name was Steven, and he was a year younger than me. And I took him under my wing and be like, dude, I'm gonna get you jacked. Like, look, there's a gym next to our house. Like, we're gonna go, and then we'll like run to it, and then we'll like run back home too. Because and we did that stuff, and he was just like, okay, I like completely. And we did that, and I guess that was kind of my thing. And then, to my senior year, we had a job shadowing class, and my strength coach was like my first year having a real strength coach. He was a power lifter. And while all my friends were job shadowing that fourth period, like doctors or dentists or lawyers, I was like, coach, I just want to know more about it. Like I want to learn. He was like, okay, cool. And then he just had me paint like the lines on the football field and stuff. Like had me like, like I had nothing to do, but like, and doing that, I did learn about training. I was like, man, that's awesome. But I'd always wanted to go to Georgia Tech too. So I didn't like think like, oh, this could be a career. It was just like a cool senior year thing, you know? Um, and I think I maybe told you guys too, like my college experience at Georgia Tech was that I came in thinking like, okay, cool. Electrical engineering makes the most money. Like that's what I'm going to do, without any experience doing, like computer science or any experience doing, um, really kind of any engineering other than AP Calc. So, I'm going through it and it's just like freshman year crisis after freshman year crisis. Like, we had some kids on the wrestling team at Northwestern kind of like that, but it was like, it was happening like every year. So when I finally figured out what I wanted to do, that was when I was like, well, I'm at the totally wrong school for it. Transferring would be even more hell, like just too much of a hassle. Like I can't, like I'm going to graduate. So I was like, all right, well, let me intern at, within the weight room here, just see. And, then it turned into a career. And it's kind of like once I got the Citadel as a GA, it was kind of like I was too far in, like I was all in. So I was like, all right, let's just make the most of it. Like there's no turning back, kind of like a burn the boats mentality of like, all right, let's go. But it's been awesome.
What and you've trained a lot of different sports. How do you think about like different sports and programming? Because obviously, a tennis player versus a wrestler versus a
Yeah.
baseball player, it's a much different, I guess, athletic need
Yeah.
with still needing that base of like power and strength and like injury prevention through your
Right.
weightlifting.
Great question. So I take it even further. Like I take it even to not just a sport need, but also like training age, right? Because like a tennis
Mm,
player who's trained in the weight room for, even just 2 years is going to be different than a tennis player who's never touched a weight, is scared of weights and has an injury history of XYZ, right? So you got to look at that. Obviously, you're looking at sport needs. So that was in my interview with Storney at Northwest. Like when I came up and I was meeting Storney, Coach Storney, he they were kind of asking about that, like how would you train a wrestler versus football? Like I see you work with football, blah blah blah. And for me, it's kind of like, well, what do they not already like? What are they not getting from sport? Like how do you practice? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to fill buckets. And sometimes those buckets are physical needs. Sometimes those buckets are conditioning needs. Sometimes those buckets are everything need, right? And so, my overall training philosophy is we got to make better movers. Like what carries over to the sport, like the quality of movement over quantity of load. So like, I'm not going to be married to bench press. I'm not going to be married to like the power lifts. I'm not going to be married to the Olympic lifts. It's like, what's going to have carryover to that sport? So like that tennis player is like, obviously you're going to have to like they're going to need general strength, but then also from a conditioning standpoint, like how long are the points in between? Like what is their playing style? Like what are their needs? Like are they always out of shape? Or like and they're always out of shape, but they can strike a ball really well versus, some guys are super talented but super weak. Like they can't do a pull-up. They can't do like when they lunge, their feet are too close. So like obviously their knees are going to be hurting. Their mobility sucks. So you're kind of just looking at it from a general perspective, and then you just kind of narrow it down. Like my thing is always like what I'm going to give them what they don't already get. So for instance, let me just take an example with like you guys. Me and Stormy are on the same page because like there's two schools of thought with training wrestling, and there's probably more. This is just kind of like how it was taught to me. Is like you have some who are like, let's make everything circuit based. Let's like make it as much like wrestling as possible. So you'll see guys, you'll have their weights, and it's like, okay, we're going to make the weight room like wrestling practice. So you'll have different stations. You'll do everything is timed. Everything is like circuit based. So it's go as hard as you can, 30 seconds, minimal rest, go, 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 go. But my philosophy is kind of like, well, if they're already getting that at wrestling practice, like what are they not getting? Right. And it's like, all right, well, they're not getting any, they're not getting any general preparation or general physical preparation. So like, they're not ever learning how to, you know, do a bilateral push with the, like do a squat or do a hip hinge or any of these fundamental movement patterns, being able to do a lunge, being able to, go all the way down on a pull up. Like this is the range of motion that they're at,
That's a
like,
wrestler.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They're stuck like this. So they're
Yeah.
just waiting for something to pull it even farther. There's none of this. Um, they're not coordinated with jumps. So like you'll see a coordinated, movement when they're shooting or anything like that. But then you ask them to jump and it's like a broke robot, or it's like their arms are out of sync, like they're stuck and stuff. And
Bro,
so like,
Ryan reminds me of Broke Robot a lot.
Whoa,
no, dude,
whoa.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if we even had a jump mat when you were there. That's the thing that's kind of like, I was trying to think of like what were you bad at? Like I remember like when we would break out the unconventional stuff like speedball or anything like that, like you did good like when we played soccer and stuff. So I don't know. I think you
I
were kind of
appreciate that. Yeah, Max, athlete.
the bad part was me trying to jump in on speedball, and I was like, dude, I'm like tapping out, like I can't, like right after I had tried to do that with the volleyball players, where I was kicking butt. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I think about it, and like that's kind of the school of thought. Is like, what am I providing to them that they're not already getting, so that's going to help them do like basically create a better athlete. So then their sport coach hopefully can make them better at whatever their sport is, right? Whether it's wrestling, tennis.
Yeah.
And that seemed to have worked kind of like everywhere. I think too, like I won't say obscure, that's the wrong word, but like the sports that are not traditionally known to be in the weight room, I think that those athletes have appreciated, the fact that it's not like you're not just jumping in doing stuff that they think probably is more associated with like football or strength and power sports. You know, like I'm not gonna like the girls golf team at the Citadel, like I wasn't having them do Olympic lifts. Like what like the time it would take with the limited amount of time that I had with them, the time it would take for them to get really good at doing the movement, although it would make them more explosive, more coordinated, more powerful, like we probably could be doing something else to provide those needs, like right, and they could pick it up faster, you know. Whereas if they're just spinning their wheels, and like I see that sometimes with guys here with the Olympic lifts, you know, which is kind of when I first got here. So I'm in year 3. Year 1, it was like a culture shock because it was like, whoa, whoa, what do you mean not everybody's doing, you know, the power clean, like the full clean from floor? Like, you know, like I started, it was like, no, we're gonna do cleans from the hip so they can learn how to be able to like catch and like work our way down and like break it down from a technique. And it's like 8th graders come in and they're like, and I'm getting them from all over the place. Like some of them have trained a bunch, some of them they'll pick up a bar, and it's like, no, here's like what we're gonna do, and then making adjustments. Like, all right, let's start you off with the kettlebell swing, and it's like, oh, okay, and it like builds confidence versus no, catch the clean in a full squat, you know, ask the grass, and it's that's not a good, you know, and they can't do it, so then it's like, oh, I don't, mommy, you know, like I don't want to go back, you know.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead, Max.
No, I was gonna say I like the way you're approaching it. And Ryan and I have talked about this before with a couple other guests, but if you're gonna try and emulate the sport in the weight room, like by the law of specificity, you should
Yeah.
just be doing the sport all the time.
Right.
So I think it's a great way you're approaching it, and it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Use the weight room as the weight room, and quit trying to make it the sport. Kind of, I
Yeah.
like how you put it. You fill the buckets that you're
Yeah.
not filling during the sport practice.
And dude, and as you get more talented, so like when I was listening to you guys interview Sebastian, it was just really funny to hear him talk about, you know, like he doesn't pick up a weight and stuff. Because that did drive, like, I really did have to think. I was like, it kind of drove me nuts, but also he was like one of the best. And it was kind of just like where ultimately it was like, you know what, as long as Coach Thorny's happy with where we're at, like and stuff, like that's kind of all that really matter. Like, you know, I'm not trying to piss him off by forcing him to do something, but you know, and I know he was talking about his injuries too. Like, had he trained, like, would maybe he not have had his injuries? You really can't. You can't chalk that up. Like, I'm never going to be the reason a kid doesn't get hurt, but I'm also like, I could be if I don't do things right or don't think about things in a strategic way. Like, I could be the reason somebody gets hurt, you know? So that's one of the things you kind of just got to think about. And as you get to the highest echelons or the tiers of their sport, like, it kind of gets even more general in the weight room because they're spending so much time perfecting their craft, you know, like as long as they're moving well, like from a weight room standpoint, like, yeah, I mean, as a strength coach, I always say like maybe you should be in there like once a week, you know, like I would tell like maybe Sebastian needs to be in there once a week. Not that I would have any clue, like I'm not saying, but like I think maybe once a week, but like he's not doing it. Like why would you need to, you know, like he's such a high level like a high level wrestler and stuff, like as long as you're just keeping things moving well and greased up, like, dude, spend all the time that you can because it's always at a cost, right? Like everything you do is at some type of physical cost.
Right.
And
Some
that's what I tell
recovery
our high
demand.
level guys too. Like we have a kid right now, Cam Cody. He just committed to Clemson. You know, I'm excited for him. Even as a Georgia Tech fan, I'm like super excited for him. Um, but dude, he's an absolute freak. You know, like he's like if you were to take his just his strength numbers, like, you know, at 290 pounds, he hit 20. He was wearing, you know, we had some demos with GPS trackers last season. And then this season we have a full 30 unit output with Titan Sports. But he hit 20 plus miles an hour as a top speed, like running down a quarterback at 290 pounds. You know,
Dang.
his squat clean bench total is well over 1,000. Like this year, if you wanted to, you could probably hit 1,100. You know, he can jump 29. Like a good goal for him this year, going into a senior year, is like let's see if we can get you jumping 30 plus. Like he's an absolute freak. So like he's someone where it's like, and because he's a high school kid, he's still like, Coach, I wanna squat. You know, like just pick a number, like the highest. I'm like, I want to squat 600. Like, do you think I could bench press maybe 400 this year if I keep working? It's like, dude, like you don't like the cost of getting to those strength levels doesn't equal what you could be doing something else. You know what I mean? Like, so he's an example where I'm going to use him as an example to argue for like some velocity based training units, whether it's Petruve or gym aware or just something, because it's like he would get more benefit taking a moderate weight and then moving it as fast as possible. You know, like that. Yeah. So um, I don't know what got me off on that tangent, but like that's kind of just, in terms of specificity, it's like you do get to a point where it's like, what more, like we're just chasing numbers and for what, like what is that going to help you out? Like you're not going to notice it on the field.
Yeah. That's such a great point too, especially I think about like age of athletes, especially just I know wrestling, someone talk wrestling, but as you get older, those guys need more like recovery, keep your tendons strong.
No,
If you're 32 years old and you're wrestling, like you got a high demand on your body already, you're probably not trying to squat, 500 pounds
no,
where, you,
100%.
when you're 20, 22, you can push some weights, maybe not like powerlifting weights. Um, but I guess one other question for you, Reich, is like, what about I like hearing hearing the answer from anybody that is an expert in their field with this. Is what do you think about there's like basically two camps, and I mean there's definitely people in between, but like the camp of you can keep the same program over and over as long as you're progressively overloading it, you're good,
Yeah,
or like how often do I need to change up a training program in
yeah.
order to make sure that you got a novel stimulus and you're continuing to improve in your weights, in your movement, whatever you're trying to improve.
So the way I think about that is like you just have the ends of this. The most political answer possible, but it not meaning for it to be, is like you just have those ends of the spectrum, and it's like you see it, like you see the guys where it's like the charlatans on Instagram and TikTok, like the fitness charlatans. Do you remember Ryan? Were you there with Zach Tellender, one of my interns? Like, do you remember him at all? Like the big guy who was like an intern.
Yeah, I
He's
think so.
famous now on YouTube, and he's now a country singer too.
Okay.
Um, but I remember him as
Cool.
one of my first interns at Northwestern, and he worked with everybody. He loved working with you guys too. But um, I bring him up because he's a good job of highlighting like the Instagram guys who are always just doing these random, like the random workouts. But like I go back to random training provides random results, good and bad, right? So every I look at the year and just these big phases where it's like in season, off season, preseason, and like your program is changing to fit the needs of where you're at in the year, right? So like when we're talking about everything has a cost, like you can't do the same off-season program in season, because when you're in season, the requirement of sport practice, like the sport volume goes up. So then it's like, okay, we'll need to tinker back this. But when you're looking at year to year, like you're probably more so changing up the minor stuff and keeping the big things like similar. So like when I say the big stuff, like obviously the big movements, here's the easiest way to explain it for me on my end with these guys is we look at the days and we always know that Monday is going to be the biggest training day because that's the day that our school has the least scheduling random stuff. Like I presented back in January to a bunch of Georgia high school strength coaches that about how we handle so many schedule fluctuations. Because we have 11 different schedules, like daily schedules. So, like, some days we'll have a special schedule where the middle of the day is, you might have a presentation or you might have like mass. So, we have mass once a month. Um, some days it'll be at the end. So, the end of the school day. Some days, like tomorrow, will be an advisement schedule where we have an advisement period, advisement. Um, so there's all these random things, but Monday has the least disruption. So like Monday is always our biggest training day. But what that means at certain times of the year is different things. That could mean that that's where we're hitting our heavy lifts, whereas Tuesday is where we hit our speed lifts. That might mean, you know, Monday would be the day that we, for some, it is a bit higher volume versus another group might be higher intensity. Like so how we split it up is I take the freshmen and sophomores first semester, and our head athletic trainer, who's a CSCS, he's like big in the strength conditioning. He takes the older guys, and then a select sophomores that are just real trained, really technically proficient. And my young guys hate me because every single day we're training. Like they'll see the older guys like on a Wednesday, like doing recovery work and stuff, and then like I'm over here making them do like, no, this is our single leg. We're doing barbell reverse lunges, like, and this is the first week, so you're getting, like it's an 8 each leg. So you're feeling like your legs are feeling like jello. So like that's a way we kind of make it specific, but kind of a general under the umbrella of like big training day, like high stimulus days versus kind of like lower end days. But it's never the exact same, right? Because everything is going to be different. So like the year before, the freshman class picked it up real fast, so we are able to test more movements and kind of get a little bit more numbers on guys that first semester. Whereas this past year's freshman class, it's not a knock on them, but it was just like they could not retain anything. And I don't know if it was because we had like a hurricane that took off some days, um, but it was just like like we still have freshmen now with farmers carries, and it's like they're doing suitcase carries, so that's where it's kind of like different groups are going to require different things. Like we need to do more of the same stuff with these guys, because if we change stuff up with this freshman class, it's gonna like their mind.
Iron Summit is brought to you by Bridge Athletic. Looking for a way to streamline your training programs and deliver exceptional results? Check out our friends at Bridge Athletic. Their platform is packed with over 300 templates and 1,500 instructional videos, courtesy of subject matter experts like Exos, FMS, and Hyperice, making program design both efficient and impactful. Our listeners can take advantage of an exclusive offer. For a limited time, get your first 30 days free and your next month at 50% off when you use code Iron Summit, all caps. That's code Iron Summit, no spaces, all caps, for 30 days free plus 50% off your second month at bridgeathletic.com. Check it out and start assigning custom programs directly to your athlete's mobile device.
Blows up. Whereas the year before, like we could progress a little bit more. So like with anything, it's a little bit of both to your answer. But I think as you get older, like let's just say like us, right? The basics probably don't need to change too much. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's kind of like my own personal training. I want to be able to stay fit enough to do Squattober, even though Squattober might be not in October,
I
because
saw that
October's the middle of football season. So I might have to,
September now, right?
yeah, like, dude, I have to like push stuff back. And like I'll save them too, so I can save them and send them to my friends. But like, also with like a 2-year-old, all training is random. So like at least once a week, I got to be able to like hit some of the big movements. At least, like once a week, I'm doing some type of run. And like, I heard you guys talking about like, oh, getting my miles. Like my cousin just did one of those. I don't think it's an ultra marathon, but it's like, you start at 3 a.m. and you like run all day and like through the woods, like through a trail. Like, I don't know. There's probably a thing for that, but like, he's like texting us during it and stuff. Like,
Dang.
but his training for it was like meticulous, right? Like every mile measure. Like I'm not like that. It's like for me, like I'll run until I get tired and then I turn around. And some days that might mean past my neighborhood, you know, way out near the mall. And sometimes it's like just around my neighborhood to where it's like, dude, I gotta go back. Like I'm done for. Um, so like I'm doing some type of conditioning, and then the other big movements, like I want to be able to demonstrate everything to the kids. Like I don't ever want like I don't ever want to go up to someone and just be a guy being like, hey, no, 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 like trying to talk it out. Like it's like, no, dude, like I got to show it. And it's, sometimes it's to my detriment. Like, so my first year, I was demonstrating, like a kid kept catching his clean, like he wasn't bearing the butt. So his torso wasn't up. He was catching it with knees forward and leaning back. It's a classic Olympic lift mistake, right? You catch it leaning back and then blah, blah, blah. It puts pressure on your back, stretches your abs, which I didn't really ever think about stretching your abs until I demonstrated what he was doing and I like got a hernia. Like, you know what I mean? Like I popped. Okay. Like my first year. So I was like, great, like this is good. Like first major injury as an adult where it was like, okay, gotta be smarter with it now. Like I can't just, grip and rip things from the ground now, but like I want to be able to demonstrate everything. So it's like kind of getting, that might mean the lift is only 30 minutes, like with no, like, and no warm up or
Yeah.
like counting the warm up, So that's how that kind of changes. And I don't see that really changing too much. Like I probably would still still see benefits from it too,
But
Brian.
what would be the most optimal for you? Like not talking, a high school kid that, is still learning this movement or, is trying to optimally, perform for their sport. If you just have a general fitness, 20 something year old that's like, hey, I want to put on as much muscle as possible, stay athletic, be able to, continue to move and go for a jog if I need to, play a sport on the weekend. What do you think is the most optimal way to continue to build muscle like that if you're gonna start chasing training plans? Is this, every 4 weeks, every 8 weeks? What how are you
I would go
switching this
4
up?
weeks. So I would go 4 weeks, and gradually kind of sometimes too you can progress movements by like making them more difficult, right? So for instance, you take a reverse lunge, like let's start like, oh, I'm gonna do goblet reverse lunge, because the thing you're doing it for higher reps, like in the first 4 weeks, still progressively going, like whether it's bumping it up 5 pounds um, or dropping the reps down and making it a little bit heavier too. Like you press your build up, but then so you go from goblet to now you're going dumbbell, like in each hand. So now you're stressing more of the body, right? Then it's like, okay, now I'm going barbell on my back. Or you're going front loaded first, then you can go barbell on your back, and then you're elevating your front foot too. So there's like 6 different reverse lunges all in one thing. So you can keep the same workout, right? This is just, let's say Wednesday is my single leg day, right? Or like single leg is the main movement. And then that's how you're doing it. So then if you're doing that like every 4 weeks, that's 5 months of reverse lunges you could do if that's one of your main movements. And I still think that that would be probably important too. Like also thinking like what is your fundamental or like what are your foundational movements for staying athletic? Like for me, I'd probably think definitely some type of single leg, whether it's a lunge variation or a step up variation. I think some type of vertical pull, so some type of pull up variation. I think whether you're a guy that loves squats or a guy that loves deadlifts, I think those can be sometimes, especially for someone general fitness, like those can be interchangeable, you know. But as you go older too, I think with those bigger movements, you can keep the volume lower on those and then crank up the volume on your accessory lifts too, right? So that way it's like as you get older too, like you said, like your spine has some miles on it, right? So
Mhm.
like, okay, well let's stay strong by like keeping that like maybe fives and under, but then you're building up your legs with like, then you can use machines, then you can use, you're not vertically loading the spine, so you have your dumbbells by your side or your goblet, or you're challenging it in different ways, and then cranking the reps up on those to where it's like, oh, I'm still chasing the burn because some people think if I'm not feeling it, then I'm not getting any better, right? It's like, you could do it like that. And I think that's probably a safe way to like constantly progress and build muscle without like, dude, you do those high rep day. Like I just go back to like Squattober because that's obviously like the time where I've squatted the most, in the past couple years. Like you feel it on those days. Like, and I know some people are like, oh, but your joints feel it when you go heavier on those heavy days. And it's like, no, like everything from muscle soreness to joint soreness is always on the higher rep big movements. And I guess bench press maybe gets a pass because, unless you have bad shoulders or have had shoulder problems in the past, maybe that's where it can be uncomfortable. But it's not as big of a range of motion. You're not loading up the spine in the same way. And then high rep deadlifts, I've just kind of steered clear from, not because of just because technique breaks down for me.
For
Like
sure.
you start ripping it, and then you try as hard as you can not to bounce. But like, all right, I've done 8. Like, what are you gonna
It's not really a
like? Try
movement
to
that
stay right
lends
out.
itself. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
lend itself well to high reps,
So I
like
think that's kind of
traditional
the best way
deadlift.
to do it. I think that's the best way to kind of plan that out is use the accessories for the higher rep training. And then you're just planning it strategically around the days where it's like you're doing your sprint work or you're doing your distance running. So like you're not timing out your week, structuring it to where it's like, all right, I'm doing my distance run on a day that I've crushed my legs, or the day after that I've crushed my legs or something, or you know what I mean? Like maybe that's the day you do bike so it doesn't feel as bad on your joints. Um, I think that's kind of the move is it probably just takes a little bit more of thinking and structuring, but that's probably the best way to kind of do that. And
That
then
makes
movement's
sense.
not and then movement. So like for the big like movement patterns too, like if you're always just horizontally pushing, like there's gonna be an imbalance, so making sure you're hitting a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull, like training movements, not muscles, I probably lends itself more towards athleticism versus, if I'm trying to bodybuild, then I'm definitely focusing on the muscles and less on the movements, like that's kind of like flip-flops.
Mhm.
So just thinking about that, and like, dude, who's saying also too, when you take off the constraints of like being under a sport and training for a sport, like like, dude, do half the year on a bodybuilding, and then half the year like taking that muscle mass and then trying to get as strong as you can with it, like there's no, and then do a 4 month, try to get as shredded as possible, like then there, so you crank up your conditioning and you're just in a constant state of like trying to burn calories. So that shifts what you're doing, probably more towards metabolic stuff.
Mhm.
um whether it's cranking out the prowler pushes, like I would probably still more like, if I'm trying to do that, I probably, that's where you start seeing more of the circuit based training and stuff. But yeah, dude, like why not just fit kind of what fits your schedule and stuff, and what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It is funny. It's weird once you like leave a, I don't know, a college sport aspect. It's like you're just training for life. So you're just training through, like you said, you're cycling through different things, um,
Yeah.
just just for fun now.
Yeah, you brought up the pen and paper strength app programs, but dude, I love those. And anytime I'm on a training rut where it's like, dude, I just gotta get back in the swing of things. Like I do that dumbbell, the dumbbell for strength program, because that's the one that like lends me into, like I can go 4 years. No, no, going down the hall. Sorry,
You're good.
All good.
wanted to use the
All
coach's
good.
bathroom. Like what? Um, no, but so like that dumbbell strength one is the perfect one that sets me up to where it's not like I'm just jumping into another one, and my elbow, then I blow my elbow for a week or whatever, and it's like, now I'm out for training for another couple ones. Um, so yeah, I think the pen and paper app programs are great little kind of things, and that's kind of like what I do. And there's no rhyme or reason. It's just like, I have them labeled on my hard drive is like how many days a week they are, right? So sometimes it's like the 4 day a week one, sometimes it's like 5 day a week, sometimes it's three, and it's like I kind of just gauge it on what my schedule is looking like. Like I got next year will be the first year they're taking me off sport responsibilities to like afternoon off season training for like all sports, right? So it's being more of a strength coach, because like right now my current role, like I was kind of telling you guys, every class is like a training session. Like that's our um RPE is strength and conditioning. But I also had, I would help out with football in the afternoons, not actually doing football coaching, but just kind of being like, because they have all their staff filled out. So I was kind of just like the problem solving guy. So like, oh, a kid got locked out of the locker room, like I'd let him in, or oh, hey, I'm missing this pad. Like, okay, I got, like just finding things like the fixer. Um, and then in the springtime, soccer, probably did a little bit more soccer coaching just because I played it. Um, but still not really, like I didn't have like specific responsibilities on it. So now it'll just be off season training in the fall for the spring teams. And then in the spring, um, not necessarily have an open gym, but keeping the in-season teams like rolling, just making training more organized, um, which is what some of our competitors are doing. So like we're a school that has 400 kids, um, but are playing in a division up from where we are. We're in 4A versus we were zone for 3. But because of how Georgia high school kind of, and we've always been 4A, but they took off 7A to kind of like basically shrink things down. And then for 3A and below private schools, they have their own separate playoffs. And we didn't want to do that because we felt like our seating, like we didn't want to go and then like not play a good, not a good team, but not play a competitive team until, like the third round of the playoffs. Like we didn't think that was suited for us. Like we've always tried to punch above our weight, playing, 5 and 6A schools, playing out of state schools. So we played up in 4A in one of the most competitive like regions, and that's what everybody else is doing, right? Like that's kind of like where it's moving towards. Like, so I think that to keep all of our other sports as competitive as we are in football, like that's kind of the move that we kind of need to
Mhm.
make, which is good because I think, just a more, like I wish our room was bigger so we could have bigger PE classes. And like right now we have like 30 to 40 guys in each, and like I wish we could have 50. Like I wish we could train more. I wish we could train as groups. So that's just a constant forward of building the program and moving it forward.
Yeah, no, it's the life of a strength coach. Just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to optimize what you can with what you have. What are like you know you've coached and you covered it a little bit. You've trained some teenagers, some national champions. Like what are if you were to give advice to someone looking to get into this world themselves, what would you let them know about training the different level of athletes, like pros and cons of training really high level versus, yeah, not necessarily like the training differences, but like how are they different? How are the challenges different?
I mean, on an individual basis, like we have one kid, he has some Power Five offers, very talented, and he absolutely hates the weight room. And for me, it's all about like, how do I get him in here? Like, is it making some little individual tweaks that, in the grand scheme of things, kind of don't matter from a programming standpoint, but might matter big to him to get him in here. Like, so when you're working with high level, you can have that kind of into the spectrum of high level talents, but then we also have the the other end, which is, we had a guy, his name's Third Scroggins. He graduated early. He's down in Miami now. He signed with them. He's in their spring ball, and he did everything you could imagine. And his brother's going there too. Like they were like a package deal. Like they're some of the best guys, and they will do everything you ask them to do. And it's almost unfair because it's like you might be spoiled having guys like that thinking like training is easy. Like I could tell him to do anything. Like I could give them the worst program, and because of how hard they're going and how bought into what you're saying they are, like they'll see benefits. Like all of their KPIs, like from a vertical jump to their sprinting to their strength numbers, like it's all going to go up because of how hard they're going to do what you're asking them to do.
Yeah,
So
there's the that's the saying, the like best program done at 80% is not as effective as the worst program done at 100%.
100%. And like when they're between 14 and 18 years old, you could have them just going outside and picking up big rocks. Like
Yeah,
like, dude, move these boulders, and like you're gonna see some guys like not see it, a lot of benefit, and then other guys will turn into Greek gods. So like I don't, from an advice standpoint, I think it's more so like you got to be able to get in there and just always be like coach, 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 coach. Like find a mentor. I think I know for a fact I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have a mentor. Like from Coach Eric Ciano, who was with the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure if he might still be. He was the one who accepted me as an intern at Georgia Tech, and then like a month into it, like he went to the Buffalo Bills. So I was like, oh crap, like I'm done for. But then his assistant, Coach Peduzzi, Neil Peduzzi, he kept me on. So then for 2 years, I was able to learn and see him, and like some things I was like, okay, yeah, this is how I would want to do it. And other times I was like, I wonder if that would be better. Like while doing that, I was learning under all the assistants, who would go off either to, you know, other colleges or other, they would go down to the high schools or up into the pros. Like, so the mentors are what taught me, because I was learning from their experiences. I was watching how they coach, and I was like, okay, I could do that. And it's like, well, I don't know if I have the energy to coach like that guy, or you know what I mean, or I'll try to coach like that guy, and then it's like his style is so over the top that because I'm not 6'3", looking like the Hulk, like it just doesn't work. So like, all right, well, how would my style be, looking the way I am? Like that's another thing too. Like if I'm a bigger guy, I'm gonna have a different coaching style than a a guy who probably looking at me would be like, oh, like maybe he's got some muscles, but it's not like anything like I'm not gonna have any NIL deals from how I like any strength coach NIL deals,
You
or if
know,
I
you
had
know,
no one's following my influencer page, so like I had to figure out a way to be able to just communicate the why good, right? So like even if you didn't like what we were doing, at least you knew why. So like maybe you would, instead of giving 30%, you're gonna give 60%. So like that was for me, it's like, okay, I'm a little nerdy, I'm a little quirky, I like techno music. I like, this is who I am. I'm not going to try to be this hardo. Like I like to have a good time. I'm going to put effort into the training environment, to make it as conducive to working hard as possible. Um, so I need to learn how to communicate that and explain the why behind everything. And that's what I found is my success. So just thinking about those things, and there's some good, um, there's some good books. The Art of Coaching is a great book from Brett Bartholomew. Strength Coach CEO for Ron McKeefer is a great book too. I'll give a shout out. Joe Ken, he did the tier system, which was like the first book. I bought it on Amazon before like Amazon was Amazon. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
when it
before,
was when it
like,
was just books. Yeah,
yeah, when it was
I
just book,
remember. I remember. I'm
just
old too.
books. In college, I got the hard copy, but and now I have I'd probably use more of the electronic copy more than anything. But like those types of things, those books all have little tidbits I think I would lean into in terms of like being able to work on your coaching style, no matter the level too, right? And then also too, like at GCU, I thought was one of the best like breeding grounds for strength coaches because number one, like we had as a mid major, we had tons of sports um, that were competitive in the WAC, and we had huge undergrad population for like sports, for strength and conditioning. So I had we would have intern classes, and it was almost like, whoa, like I didn't know what to do with all of them, and like a lot of them ended up just wanting to be personal trainers, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like they found that out sooner rather than later. Um, but like we had some really good interns, and I thought too the Citadel we had some really great interns too because once again we had a great undergrad strength and conditioning, like the health exercise and sports science like program, the HES program there was really really good. So like a low cost, like if you're in school now, like I probably wouldn't do like you'd have to have a good situation to financially nowadays to be able to like move somewhere for an internship. But like if you're already in school, like doing an undergrad internship, like if you're already in school for exercise science, like I'm trying right now to build a little pipeline with Georgia Southern. Um, the Statesboro is not that far away, and dude, if we could get some interns here, that could probably do a lot for us from a program standpoint to be able to further individualize. Like right now we're individualizing based off of training age and in the springtime there's sports, but like if we had some over the summer, like we could really work on some stuff and take it to another level because of just like the like the dividing of duties. Like I'm not running from the weight room to the field and all this other stuff. It's like no, like you got the field stuff. And that's what we did at the Citadel too. Is like we would give interns ownership, and like obviously we coach them up. Like we're not going to have the most complicated drill to like the greenest intern and be like, hey,
Good luck.
here's how it looks on the board. Like we drew it up. Like all right, now you go and do it. Like we didn't do that, but like there's no reason why an intern can't like go and run like a pro agility or like a reactions 5 yards build up or like 5 yard acceleration. There's no reason one can't do that. And it's like you give them a whistle, you teach them how to blow the whistle too. That's another thing. Like you would imagine like something like huffing and puffing like that's not going to make us like that's not a sound that athletes are going to respond to. So like you got to coach them up on these things. But good mentors will, and there's enough good mentors there to do that, to be able to forge your own path. And I think too, like high school strength and conditioning is a huge field with tons of opportunity. Like right now, the next big project plan is an athletic center here uh, at Benedictine. So like it's going to be a huge project.
At Iron Summit, we are about getting everything we can out of our workouts and everyday lives. If you aren't wearing a pair of barefoot or wide toe box trainers, you are leaving gains on the table. The Sashi Athletics Ronin Ichi Minimalist Trainer is a perfect barefoot shoe. Not only does it perform like other major brands on the market, it is actually good looking. Even my wife says so. Get a pair today for 10% off with the code IronSummit10. Link is in the bio.
The last rendering I saw, which once again, renderings change. I mean, you guys probably know this more than I do, but like renderings change like 1,000 times before you actually, hit the ground digging, and then probably a little bit more after the fact. But like a 15,000 square foot weight room with like 20 double-sided racks was like the last thing I saw. So it's like, holy shit, we're going to be able to train like the whole school at once possibly. Like, like it's going to be nuts. Um, and, but that's just here. Like we're just now getting to that point. Whereas other schools like around the state, around the country, like have already built out these weight rooms just as nice as the ones we had at Northwestern that we built, Ryan. Like it's going to be insane. So with that, like you need more strength coaches to fill out like the things. Those rooms are big rooms are nice, but like you just said, like big rooms with no strength coaches in them, for me, it's like more potential for a kid to get really messed up, right? Like if there's the lower number of professionals in there, the higher the risk. So um I think high school strength and conditioning is definitely where I would probably point interns towards if you're wanting for like a good job right away, because otherwise, like when you get to the collegiate setting, like right now, especially with the little one, I think that it'd have to be with like one of my best friends. And like I still have a couple that I would go and coach in the collegiate setting, or be tempted to kind of like apply and stuff, just because like with the little one is so chaotic. Like that first year too, like learning how to deal with the fact that like my daughter may have a fever and like I have to go, like no matter what I have planned, like I gotta go pick her up from daycare. Like you can't, like, and I want to pick her up from daycare. Like I don't want to like leave her there to be like things. So like no matter what I have planned, could always just be like, sorry guys, I'm out. And like I just don't know how like a young professional me at, like I think Northwestern would probably be a better school. GCU probably a better school for it. But like at a high level, like a high level program, like what am I gonna, and like I only have one team, like I don't know what that's gonna look like. Like, I guess I'm bringing a sick daughter, with her with a fever, blowing a whistle, like I don't know, So that's where I think going back to the collegiate setting, I don't know. Like it would have to be, it had to be like a perfect situation because of just how perfect, the current one being, um, how perfect the one is now, and how volatile college athletics is. I know y'all have talked about it. I feel bad for Ryan. Like we could have had some fun. We could have made some fun shirts. Like I would have bought all of them, dude. Like I would have bought every single one and like put them on Instagram, like, because that was back when I was probably more active on Instagram with stuff like, but man, we could
NIL
have.
is crazy, man. It's nuts.
So like, I don't know what
That's
that looks like, like, what does that look like? Like, are they cutting back the faculty and stuff? Like, there's always going to be, some would
Yep.
argue that the faculty, college athletics, it's so bloated now anyways from an administration standpoint. So I don't know what that would
maybe it
look like.
trickles down though. Like, maybe start investing in, high school, middle school, because now there's
Yeah.
a huge investment in your athletics. If you go to a
And
high level in college, you could get, a high ROI on that. Not that that's why you play, but
well,
Oh,
I mean, high
100%.
school kids can get NIL deals now too.
Yeah, so in Georgia, you're not. So in Georgia, I think the rule is like you're not allowed to, which stinks. But like, it is crazy to think about. Some of our
A lot of
guys,
states they can, yeah.
a lot of our guys are going to be making like 2 or 3 times as much as I am, literally, like next year. You know what I mean? Like very next year. Um, what's up, man? Thank you, appreciate you. Uh, no, you're good. It's gonna be nuts thinking how much they're making. They deserve it too. I mean, like, dude, I'm never gonna be the person that's like, oh, like they should just be able to get their money or get their education and like they don't need to get paid. Like just think about how much time you spent, Ryan, like how much time you spent towards your craft, and you too, Max, like how much time did you spend that you planned holidays, you planned like all the things you missed too. And I say like obviously you guys loved what you were doing and stuff, but you missed a lot. Like you sacrificed a lot just as much as I was. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were all there. Like I know for a fact, probably less so when the lakefront facility was built, Ryan, but like I would see you guys at all hours, and probably because I was a little bit also of a workaholic. I like being there, but like I'd see you guys all the time. Like we were there all day, but you guys were just getting your education paid for to an extent, for some, not everybody. And, I was on salary, like I had benefits. Like what did you guys, So like I think they all deserve it. It's just a matter of like, it's just so chaotic right now,
It
Whereas for
is.
me, I like to think of like, okay, like I just got to make sure, like the kids, it's the ever, it's the never ending battle of making sure the kids don't kill themselves, like every single day. Like I know you guys will sometimes see the memes that I share on like high school kids training,
yeah.
and like and I let like the kids I trust follow me because like I like tagging them on it because they see it just as much in class as I do. And now it's starting to get to a point where like it's education through memes, like it's educating the kids. Like they're seeing stuff and it's like, oh wow, that does really look dumb, like when you do that, or oh, like I shared one about like ladder drills and it's like, oh yeah, like this guy river dancing, like he probably couldn't beat me on like off the line as a receiver. Like it probably doesn't have much of a carryover like with these lateral drills. Like so it's funny in a way, like that's kind of, you're educating through a different medium, but um yeah, it's a never ending battle. So like I think what you were saying too about it, like it's a wide open field down here and we have one kid too who transferred in. He's a defensive line recruit. He's come back from a shoulder injury. And like our athletic trainers are very, very, I don't want to say protective is the wrong word, but they're slow cooking him back because of how competitive he is. Like if he just jumped into morning workouts right now, he'd probably re-injure his shoulder. And he's projected as like the 2027, like one of the top recruits in the class, like nationally, right? So like
Yeah.
if we're not doing our due diligence and we're not being smart with them, like we're possibly costing him, life-changing money. So, you know, it's wild times.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is.
And to circle back on some of that stuff, right, too, I think you've always done a good job of bringing in and mentoring, like interns and having, a lot of people around programs, which was really cool to see you, coach them up and then, kind of give them the skills and the education and then letting them run with it. Cause I know we always had new interns coming in every year. And by the end of the year, it was so cool to see the difference and you see your style in them, but they're also like encouraged to kind of find their own voice and their own style with it, which I think is it's a hard thing to do as like a leader, to kind of step back and let people fill the shoes, but also kind of let them make their mistakes and let them make their own ways. um next question for you, just like, if at a high level, what do you think like the two biggest levers you see that people should and could pull in terms of strength and conditioning, to improve performance, muscle gain, all the above?
Like, God, it's probably the same ones everyone else has said. Like, I think nutrition, and I'll just give you an example. Like, I don't think our kids eat enough. And it's crazy to think about the only macronutrient that matters is calories for some of these kids. And it's crazy to me that they don't eat enough, especially with like the dining services that we have. Like we're blessed to have uh, a dining company, Sage Dining, come in and like basically it's like you have a hot plate line. It's the same dining hall experience that you'd have at in like a collegiate dining hall. It's the same experience. And I mean, and they're always eating the pizza. Like they'll always just go to, oh, I'm just eating pizza every day. And it's like, okay, but like how many? You eat like one slice and like on some days you don't even eat that. Like, and then you'll just get the dessert. Like the guys do not eat enough. And if I were to pick the one thing, I know you asked for two levers, but like the one thing that are like high level guys or high level contributors across the board from baseball, football, even the soccer kids, it's they eat enough and like they hydrate enough too. So like they're eating and hydrating enough, like they'll always have a water bottle on them. And when you look at them for lunch, no matter if they get in the line late or what, like they have the hot plate, even if they don't like it, like even if it's the weird, like, dude, like Chef Vince the other day he did like Australian dining. And I was just like, what? And no, like it was like Australian day or
It's
something. And it was
kangaroo or what?
I don't know if it was kangaroo, but like, I don't know, like and it's not a day that was the day I got pasta. Like I just didn't trust like what the plate, like I didn't think I liked the taste and I didn't want to waste a plate too. That was my big thing is like I didn't want to waste a plate if I didn't like it. So
Yeah.
I went the pasta that day, but like nutrition is something, and especially if I know not everybody's blessed to have like both parents in the home or like, if their parents are both working, they're not there, but the parents care so much. So like me sharing all these resources, um, that I've kind of just gathered through the years, like me sharing with their parents and the parents trying hard, like there's really no excuse for some of these kids too. It's just kind of like, I don't want to, or I'm not trying. And and so that's kind of the frustrating end because even if they're still a high performer despite all that, it's like you always just wonder what if, like, dude, what could be, Um,
100%.
but then also too, the other thing I think about too is like just handling your business, like being organized. And I know that some people live their life by just flying by the seat of their pants. And I know that, ADHD is a thing that, a lot of kids really struggle with. And I used to think like, oh, it's just overdiagnosed or whatever. But when I see like I see it every single class, every single day. When they ask me like, are the farmer's carry is like, coach, is it two or one, two arms or like one arm? Like I'm talking, explaining stuff, and they're, like for me, I give a demonstration, a visual demonstration, like a reference, like a written reference. Like if they learn by seeing, they'll learn from it. If they see by reading themselves, they'll do it. And then like I remind too. So like I'm checking off all these like
It's
teaching
that social
boxes,
media
right?
brain. The attention span's gone.
Dude, 100%. Um, so I see that, but like even with that, the guys that are high performers have their ducks in a row, whether that's and because they have their ducks in a row, even if they have to, burn some midnight oil to stay up late to finish something, to meet a deadline, to like roll up their sleeves and grind a little bit, they can do that and then I have a week's worth of like life being in disarray.
Yeah.
So like I think too, like the sooner you can get a routine of just having things in order. And I know some people are big believers in like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I definitely think there's merit to that. But I also think too, like I've seen some high performers like not make their beds and like they're making great grades, like their life is in really good shape. And I don't know how much value, like if they make their bed, like how much that's going to add to it. But I do the what the message behind that is, I think, is what I'm saying though, is like handle your business. Like for me, like with this, with our school, it being a military school, like everybody's in ROTC through sophomore year, and then they get to choose junior and senior year. I think, like if I'm remembering correctly, whether or not to stay in it, and most stay in it because they get to do fun things like St. Patty's Day in Savannah is almost just as big as St. Patty's Day in Chicago, and the only reason it's not is because it's not as big of a city, right? But St. Patty's Day in Savannah is huge, and like our guys are a main like a tradition of marching in it, and then you'll see like, and it's kind of weird when I'm saying it out loud to like people who've never been to Savannah and seen it, but like a big thing is like, oh, we go kiss the cadet, not me, but like women will go and like kiss the cadets and like leaving. It's like the guys are all seeing like how many, like lipstick marks they can have on their cheeks. And then when like you really think about like these are high school kids, it's like it can kind of like if you think too hard about it, it can maybe sound a little weird. Um, so like a lot of guys stay in ROTC for these big moments of tradition here. But like so what comes with that is like remembering your uniform, what uniform you're supposed to have that day. So like I think one of the reasons our school is so successful against other schools that might have even more talent than us is no matter how bad the kids are, there's a baseline level of because if you don't wear the right stuff, like you get disciplinary points. And if you forget your belt, that's a point. And if you get 40 points, like you're out. So like there's a baseline level of discipline, no matter how undisciplined kids might be, like there's a baseline level that's higher than other competitors that and a baseline level of organization that I think propels us against our opponents. And I think that plays a big thing into or a big role into the success of if you're next level. Because that's another big thing is like, oh, one of our big, I guess, phrases is next level. Like everything we're doing is next level. And in the weight room, it's like whatever your next level is, whether it's Power Five or Planet Fitness, like I'm going to make sure you know what you're doing for your next level. Um, I think that's part of it is part of being next level is remembering what you need to remember, being where you need to be, being held to that account, and accepting that coaching. Because some kids, you got to rear them in a little bit. Um, I think those are the two big levers of success that maybe young kids listening. Like I've got some wrestlers. I've talked some wrestlers into listening to you guys. Like they're kind of bought in, too. I tell them that all the time of just like of being organized, like being like don't the more organized you are, the better able you are to handle chaos, the just natural chaos of being an athlete. So those I
Yeah,
think
your
are the
accountability, consistency, organization
yeah.
skills. That makes a lot of sense. It's funny when we ask somebody like a question like that. I don't know if exactly that question, but it the food one comes up a lot. Like food's a big lever, but I like the accountability, consistency aspect because it's such a big. I don't
Yeah,
know, just a huge
it goes
lever.
across all things. I think you said it's discipline. And
Yeah.
when you have discipline, then everything else falls underneath that. Your nutrition, your training. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
discipline
good
is
point too.
the great the great equalizer. But thank you. It's been awesome talking with you.
It was nice meeting
Um,
you in person, Matt,
yeah,
or I guess digitally,
yeah,
as
digitally.
in
Yeah,
person as it is across the country.
we'll stay in touch. And
Yeah.
um, anything else? Where can people find you? How can uh, how can they follow your journey as a strength coach?
Yeah, dude. So I guess my Instagram handle, I've been too lazy to kind of like change. Like some people do it with their school, and it's like then they're changing it every year, and it's like, dude, I can never find them to like, like I'm trying to find something that they posted, and it's like, oh, they're at UNC Wilmington now, and it's like I would have never know, like, So, but my name is Stephen Reich 6, and then um, I don't think people really use Facebook too much. But my name, like, but I'm not big on, I say I'm not big on it, but I don't have, I
Yeah,
figured
no,
those two things out of all the resources that I kind of like use, like those two things end up, if I had a Twitter, it would be, I would be even more distracted than my kids are. So,
Yeah.
um, but those two things are the biggest way, but also too, like you can always, like I've had people reach out too with like whether it's training questions or even like, hey coach, do you know so and so? I know you worked here. Like I'm trying to, like get in touch with them for maybe an internship or something. Like that's, I'm a big believer in like paying it forward because for me, like every stop along the way, like I would never would have known, had my high school strength coach never hosted a clinic, I would never would have met Coach Ciano to like ask about the Georgia Tech internship. And then had I never worked at Georgia Tech, I never would have known about, my boss at the Citadel, Donnell Boucher, they had a mutual connection. And that's how I like found out about that GA position. And that's how they like reached out about that. Um, and then had I never added Mike Schweigert, who he was at Northwestern with me, and now he's the director at UIC. Had I never added him on Facebook after just having met him once at a conference, and then like bonded over Walking Dead back when it was actually a good TV show. Um, I never bonded over that. I never would have known about the Northwestern position. So like, and then from there, had I never been good friends with the people I was working at Georgia Tech, never would have found out about the GCU position. So it was like everything, and then funny story about this position, how I found out about Benedictine Military School is we're in Vegas for the WAC tournament. It's under lockdown because it's during COVID time. So it's like I'm sitting in the hotel room, you know, wife is 8 months pregnant, and it's like we've been talking, and although some of my in-laws, her family were living close to us in Phoenix, like my parents were excited as their first grandkid, like we're excited, but like her whole family's in Warner Robins, like close. So I was like, God, like, wouldn't it be nice to kind of like get back to Georgia? I was like, well, yeah, but there's only a couple colleges that really have a strength conditioning programs. Like, I just don't know. And my buddy, who was a football GA with me at the Citadel, he sent me this thing and like, wouldn't it be cool to live in Savannah? And I was just like, yeah, it would be. And then the posting for this was like, weightlifting coach was like, it's for a high school. It's a private school, so I wouldn't have to get the Georgia teaching certification. Weightlifting coach is different than like PE teacher. Like I didn't really have any interest in like teaching like PE. Like, like I could just imagine me, going through like like some type of physical education curriculum and just being like, oh, all right, let's go lift, like you guys remember your vocabulary words and like, let's go, So I was like, okay, let me just inquire about it. And then it was like every single thing that I learned. So like as crazy as cool as it is to bash social media nowadays,
It's cool.
and then part of me like believes in like it's caused some issues. I can't really at the baseline level for me, I still think I have to thank it for every job that I've had has been from that. So
Yeah, that's
it's kind of
awesome, Reich. The network effects are crazy, but yeah,
yeah.
man, really appreciate you coming on. This was awesome. Definitely learned a lot from you, and definitely want to, continue to learn a lot from you. I know you're a great follow on Instagram too.
Hey, I'll get you
for
some training shirts.
athletes.
I just put in an order. I just put in an order for some of our Iron Cadet, like summer competition shirts. I'll get you guys. I'll
Heck yeah.
text it. I'll text it. I'll get you some stuff. We'll text it.
You're the
Thank
man,
you.
right? It
Yeah,
was great
See ya.
talking to you.
I'll text it. Appreciate y'all.
Bye.